The morning sun filtered through the elegant curtains of the Golden City store, illuminating the display cases filled with dazzling jewelry and luxury watches. Sarah, the manager, a woman with fair skin and a haughty bearing, walked through the store with a critical eye, ensuring everything was impeccable for another day of exclusive sales. The tinkling of the door announced the arrival of two women, Rose Johnson, a 56-year-old black woman in a wheelchair, and her daughter Emily, an elegant and self-assured woman. Sarah raised an eyebrow, her expression transforming into a mixture of surprise and disdain. "Welcome to Golden City," Sarah said in a tone that contradicted her words. "How can I help you?" Rose smiled, excited to be in the store. "We're looking for a special gift," she began to say, but Sarah interrupted her, addressing Emily directly. "Miss, are you sure you're in the right place? Our products are quite exclusive." Emily frowned, but before she could respond, Jack, a young fair-skinned salesman, approached with a warm smile. "Good morning, ladies. It would be my pleasure to show you our collection. Do you have something specific in mind?" As Jack guided Rose through the store, patiently and respectfully showing her the different pieces, Sarah watched with growing irritation. "Jack," she called sharply, "I need you to attend to the VIP customers who are about to arrive. I'll take care of these ladies." Jack hesitated, looking at Rose and Emily with concern. "I'm sure I can handle both, Sarah. The ladies arrived first and—" "It wasn't a suggestion, Jack," Sarah interrupted. "Go prepare for the VIPs." Reluctantly, Jack apologized and walked away, leaving Rose and Emily in Sarah's hands. "Now," Sarah said, turning to them with a forced smile, "what exactly are you looking for? We have more accessible pieces in the back of the store." Rose, without losing her dignity, replied, "Actually, I was interested in seeing the limited edition watches I saw in the catalogue." Sarah let out a condescending laugh. "Oh dear. Those watches are very exclusive collector's pieces. Perhaps it would be better if you looked in a store more suitable for your situation." Emily, who had remained silent until that moment, stepped forward, her eyes shining with a mixture of indignation and determination. "Our situation, as you call it, is perfectly adequate to shop in this store. I suggest you show us those watches immediately." Sarah, surprised by the firmness in Emily's voice, hesitated for a moment before regaining her composure. "Of course, if you insist, but I warn you, the prices can be shocking." As Sarah walked away to bring the watches, Emily took her mother's hand. "Don't worry, Mum. This is going to be resolved." Rose looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "Emily, you don't have to—" "Shh," Emily interrupted her gently. "Trust me." At that moment, the store door opened again, and an imposing figure entered, causing everyone present to turn and look. The figure that entered the store was none other than Emily Johnson, dressed in an elegant suit and with a surprised expression on her face. Sarah, who was returning with a box of watches, stopped in her tracks, her face paling as she realized her mistake. "Mrs. Johnson," Sarah stammered, "we weren't expecting your visit today." Emily ignored Sarah and went directly to Rose, hugging her affectionately. "Mum, I arrived just in time for our appointment, right?" Rose smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "Yes, my love, just in time." Sarah, paralyzed by the revelation, watched the scene with a mixture of horror and confusion. Jack, who had returned upon hearing the commotion, couldn't help but give a small smile of satisfaction. Emily turned to Sarah, her voice calm but firm. "Sarah, could you explain to me why my mother and I have been treated this way in my own store?" The silence that followed was deafening. The few customers present watched the scene with interest, while the other employees stayed on the sidelines, aware of the tension in the air. Sarah, trying to regain control of the situation, began to stammer excuses. "Mrs. Johnson, I didn't know. I was just following store protocols to discriminate?" Emily interrupted, her voice filled with disappointment. "To judge people by their appearance or physical condition? Those are not Golden City's values, Sarah. They never have been and never will be." Turning to Jack, Emily continued, "Jack, thank you for your kindness and professionalism. It's the kind of attention we expect to give to all our customers without exception." Jack nodded, grateful but visibly uncomfortable with the situation. "I just did what anyone should do, Mrs. Johnson." Emily took a deep breath before making a decision that would change the course of many lives. Sarah, your behavior today has been unacceptable. I cannot allow someone with these prejudices to represent Golden City. You're fired. A murmur of surprise ran through the store. Sarah, stunned, tried to protest, but Emily raised a hand to silence her. Please gather your things and leave. You'll receive your severance pay in accordance with the law, but you cannot continue working here. As Sarah left the store, struggling to maintain her composure, Emily addressed the rest of the staff. This will serve as a reminder to everyone. Golden City is a place of inclusion and respect. Any form of discrimination will not be tolerated. Turning to Jack, Emily smiled. Jack, I'm impressed by your attitude. I'd like you to consider taking the position of manager. I believe your values align perfectly with what Golden City represents. Jack, surprised and excited, nodded. It would be an honor, Mrs. Johnson. Thank you for this opportunity. Rose, who had observed everything in silence, took her daughter's hand. I'm so proud of you, my girl. You've built something beautiful here. Emily hugged her mother, aware that this was only the beginning of a greater change. Thank you, Mum. But there's still a lot to do. This incident has made me realize that we need to be more proactive in our mission of inclusion. As mother and daughter shared that moment outside the store, Sarah watched them through the glass, her face a mask of resentment and shame. In her mind, a plan for revenge was already forming. That night, after closing the store, Emily invited Jack to her office to discuss his new role as manager. The young man, still processing the day's events, sat in front of Emily's desk, noticing for the first time the small details that spoke of his boss's personality. Family photos, business awards, and a small cactus in a golden pot. Jack, Emily began, her voice soft but firm, before you officially accept the position, there's something I want to share with you. A story that few know. Intrigued, Jack leaned forward, giving her his full attention. Emily took a deep breath before continuing. Before Golden City, before all this, she gestured, encompassing the luxurious office, I came from a low-income family. My mother, Rose, worked cleaning houses, and I sold crafts on the streets to help with expenses. Jack's eyes widened in surprise, but he didn't interrupt. The path to get here wasn't easy, Emily continued, her gaze lost in memories. I faced racism, classism, doors slammed in my face, but each obstacle only made me more determined. I learned, saved, and little by little, I built this. She stood up and walked to the window, observing the city lights. I'm telling you this, Jack, because I want you to understand why what happened today affected me so much. I've been in my mother's place. I've felt those looks of contempt. And I swore that if I ever succeeded, I would create a space where no one would have to feel that way. Jack, moved by the revelation, nodded slowly. I understand, Mrs. Johnson, and I admire even more what you've accomplished. Emily turned to him, a warm smile lighting up her face. Thank you, Jack, and please call me Emily. Now, as a manager, I need you to be my eyes and ears. I want Golden City not only to sell luxury, but also to inspire change. Count on me, Jack replied with determination. Where do we start? First, said Emily, pulling out a folder from her desk, I want to implement a diversity and inclusion training program for all staff. Second, we're going to review our hiring policies to ensure we're giving opportunities to people from all backgrounds. As they discussed the details, Emily's phone rang. Seeing the name on the screen, she frowned. Excuse me, Jack, I have to take this call. We'll continue tomorrow, okay? Jack nodded and left, closing the door behind him. Emily answered the call, her voice tense. Good evening, Mr. Thompson. How can I help you? The voice on the other end of the line was deep and authoritative. Emily, dear, I've heard about what happened today in your store. The dismissal of Sarah. It wasn't a smart decision. Emily straightened up, her jaw tense. With all due respect, Mr. Thompson, I make the decisions about my staff. Of course, the man replied, in a tone that suggested otherwise. But Sarah is an old friend. I'm sure we can come to an agreement to reinstate her. I'm sorry, but my decision is final, Emily responded firmly. There was a moment of silence before Mr. Thompson spoke again, his voice now cold. Think about it carefully, Emily. You don't want to make enemies with the wrong people. Golden City has prospered thanks to its connections. It would be a shame if that changed. Before Emily could respond, the call was cut off. She stared at the phone, a mixture of anger and concern on her face. She knew this confrontation was just the beginning of a much larger battle. Meanwhile, in a nearby cafe, Sarah was meeting with a group of elegant-looking people. Her face, previously dejected, now showed a calculating smile. "I thank you for meeting with me," she said, leaning forward. "I have information that might interest you about Golden City and its dear owner, Emily Johnson. Information that could change everything." Those present exchanged intrigued looks, unaware that their actions were about to trigger a series of events that would shake the foundations of the luxury world in New York City. The sun was barely peeking over the skyscrapers of New York City when Emily arrived at the Golden City store. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the soft hum of the vacuum cleaner greeted her, signs of another day beginning in the luxurious establishment. Jack was already there, reviewing inventory with a tablet in hand. Seeing Emily, he smiled and approached. "Good morning, Emily. I have some news that might interest you." Emily raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Good or bad?" Jack made a face. "A bit of both, I'm afraid. The good news is that sales have increased by 15% since we implemented the new inclusion policies. The bad, well, there are rumors circulating." "What kind of rumors?" Emily asked, her voice tinged with concern. "They're saying you're planning to sell the store to a foreign investor. Some employees are nervous, and I've heard that some regular customers are considering taking their business elsewhere." Emily frowned, her mind working at full speed. "That's absurd. I would never sell Golden City. Where did this information come from?" Jack shrugged. "I'm not sure, but it seems to have originated shortly after the incident with Sarah." "Sarah," Emily murmured, realization dawning on her face. "Of course. She's trying to destabilize us." At that moment, Rose entered the store, her wheelchair emitting a soft hum. "Good morning, my love." "Jack, it's nice to see you." Emily kissed her mother on the cheek. "Mom, what are you doing here so early?" Rose smiled, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "I wanted to show you something. Look." She took out her phone and showed Emily her Instagram profile. The page was full of photos of Rose in the store, showing different jewels and watches, each image accompanied by inspiring messages about inclusion and self-esteem. "Mom, when did you do this?" Emily asked, surprised and touched. "After our visit the other day, I thought it might help change people's perception of who can enjoy luxury. And look, I already have over 10,000 followers." Jack whistled, impressed. "Mrs. Rose, you're quite the influencer." Emily hugged her mother, tears of pride in her eyes. "You're amazing, Mom. This is exactly what we needed to counteract those negative rumors." As the three discussed how to take advantage of this new opportunity, outside the store, a figure observed the scene with interest. It was Mr. Thompson, the powerful businessman who had threatened Emily over the phone. His eyes narrowed, assessing the situation. "So you want to play hardball, Emily?" he muttered to himself. "Very well, let's see who can hold out longer." With one last calculating look, Thompson walked away, his mind already plotting the next move in this game of power and prestige. Weeks passed, and Golden City seemed to have weathered the initial storm. The rumors about the sale had dissipated, largely thanks to Rose's growing popularity on social media and Emily's transparency in her communications with customers and employees. However, a new threat was looming on the horizon. One morning, Jack rushed into Emily's office holding a business magazine. "Emily, you have to see this," he said, extending the magazine. On the cover, a flashy headline announced, "New Luxury, the new crown jewel in the world of luxury." Emily took the magazine, her eyes quickly scanning the article. A new luxury store, focused on a young audience, cutting-edge technology, just 2 blocks away from us. Jack nodded gravely. "They'll open in a month, and from what I've heard, they have some innovations that could attract many of our younger customers." Emily leaned back in her chair, her mind working at full speed. "This is not a coincidence. First the rumors, now this. Someone is trying to put us out of business." "What are we going to do?" Jack asked, concern evident in his voice. Emily stood up, a spark of determination in her eyes. "We're going to innovate. If they want competition, they'll have it. But we'll do it our way without losing our values." Over the next few weeks, Golden City became a hive of activity. Emily led a series of brainstorming meetings involving all staff, from salespeople to cleaning personnel. "I want everyone to participate," she announced at a general meeting. "Each of you has a unique and valuable perspective. Together, we'll find a way to stay relevant without compromising who we are." Ideas began to flow, from partnerships with emerging designers from marginalized communities to the implementation of augmented reality technology that would allow customers to try on jewelry virtually. Rose, who had become an integral part of the team, suggested a series of accessible luxury events where people from all backgrounds could experience the glamour of Golden City. "We could have themed nights," she proposed enthusiastically. "Imagine a night in Hollywood, where people can try on iconic jewelry worn by movie stars or ancestral treasures, celebrating designs inspired by different cultures." The idea was met with applause, and Emily couldn't help but smile with pride. Her mother once again demonstrated that wisdom and innovation knew no limits of age or condition. As Golden City prepared for this new era, Emily received an unexpected invitation. It was for a charity event organized by the city's business elite, including the mysterious owner of New Luxury. "It's a trap," Jack warned when Emily showed him the invitation. Emily nodded, but her expression was one of determination. "Probably, but it's also an opportunity. If we're going to change things, we have to face them head-on." That night, as she prepared for the event, Emily received a call from her mother. "Be careful, my love," Rose said, her voice full of maternal concern. "Remember who you are and why you fight." Emily smiled, comforted by her mother's words. "I will, Mom, and when I get back, we'll have a lot to plan." The future of Golden City is about to shine brighter than ever. With one last glance in the mirror, Emily left, ready to face whatever fate and her competitors had in store for her. The ballroom of the Empress Hotel glittered with the shimmer of hundreds of jewels and the tinkling of champagne glasses. New York City's elite mingled, exchanging practiced smiles and superficial conversations. Emily, wearing an elegant golden dress that reflected the essence of Golden City, entered with her head held high. It didn't take long before she found herself face to face with Mr. Thompson, the businessman who had threatened her weeks ago. "Emily, dear," Thompson greeted with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What a pleasure to see you here. How's business? I've heard you have competition." Emily maintained her composure. "Business is excellent, Mr. Thompson. In fact, we're in the midst of some exciting innovations." Before Thompson could respond, a soft voice interrupted. "Ah, so you're the famous Emily Johnson." Emily turned to find a young man with an elegant appearance and an enigmatic smile. "I'm Marcus Taylor, owner of New Luxury. I've heard a lot about you and your traditional establishment." The condescending tone didn't go unnoticed by Emily. "A pleasure, Mr. Taylor. I hope you've heard about our latest initiatives. Golden City believes in evolving with the times, without losing our essence." Marcus laughed softly. Of course. Although I wonder if such an established store can really adapt to the modern market. Today's young people are looking for something more fresh." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the entrance. To everyone's surprise, Rose Johnson made her entrance, her wheelchair decorated with lights and golden ornaments that made it look like a rolling throne. A group of young influencers surrounded her, taking selfies and laughing with her. Rose, with her natural charisma, greeted everyone as if she were the guest of honor. Emily couldn't help but smile, a mixture of pride and amazement filling her chest. Her mother, once again, demonstrated that true luxury had nothing to do with age or physical condition, but with attitude and heart. Marcus Taylor observed the scene with a mixture of confusion and fascination. "Who is she?" "That," Emily replied proudly, "is my mother, Rose Johnson, the new sensation on social media and the heart of Golden City." Thompson, visibly uncomfortable with the turn of events, tried to change the subject. Well, enough business talk. We're here for a good cause, aren't we?" But the damage was already done. Several guests, intrigued by Rose's presence, began to approach Emily, asking questions about Golden City and its new initiatives. As the night progressed, Emily found herself at the center of attention, sharing her vision of inclusive and modern luxury. To her surprise, many showed genuine interest, even some who had initially been skeptical. In a quiet moment, Marcus Taylor approached Emily again. I must admit, Mrs. Johnson, that I'm impressed. Perhaps there's room for collaboration between New Luxury and Golden City. Emily looked at him cautiously. I'm open to discussing it, Mr. Taylor, as long as our values align. Meanwhile, Rose had become the unexpected star of the event. Her authenticity and charisma had captivated everyone, from young influencers to industry veterans. At the end of the night, as Emily and Rose prepared to leave, Thompson approached one last time. It seems I underestimated you, Emily, he said, his tone a mixture of reluctant respect and warning. But remember, the game has only just begun. Emily looked him directly in the eyes. It's not a game for me, Mr. Thompson. It's my life, my passion, and my legacy. And I'm ready for whatever comes. As mother and daughter left the event, Emily knew she had won an important battle that night, but the war for the future of luxury in New York City was just beginning. With Rose by her side and a dedicated team waiting at Golden City, she felt ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. The morning sun bathed the renovated facade of Golden City. After the unexpected success at the charity event, Emily had decided to implement bold changes in the store. The interior now combined classic luxury with modern touches. Interactive screens displayed the latest collections, while cozy spaces invited customers to relax and explore the jewelry at their own pace. Emily proudly watched as Jack guided a diverse group of customers, using the new augmented reality technology to show them how they would look with different pieces. It's amazing, isn't it? Rose's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. Her mother, radiant in an elegant golden suit, approached in her customized wheelchair. Yes, it is, Emily replied with a smile. And a large part of this is thanks to you, Mom. Your presence on social media has attracted a completely new audience. Rose laughed softly. Who would have thought that at my age I'd become an influencer? But the important thing is the message we're conveying. Luxury is for everyone. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Marcus Taylor, the owner of New Luxury. Despite their initial rivalry, the last few weeks had seen the beginning of a cautious collaboration between the two stores. Emily, Rose, Marcus greeted with a nod. I must admit I'm impressed with the changes. You've managed to modernize without losing your essence. Emily nodded, grateful but cautious. Thank you, Marcus. How's the preparation for our joint event going? Smoothly, he replied, although there's something I'd like to talk to you about in private. Intrigued and slightly worried, Emily led him to her office. Once there, Marcus dropped the bomb. I've received an offer to buy New Luxury, he said without preamble, from Thompson Enterprises. Emily tensed. Mr. Thompson, her former threatener, was now seeking to consolidate his power in the luxury market. And what do you think you'll do? She asked, keeping her voice neutral. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, visibly agitated. I don't know. It's a tempting offer, but after working with you, I've started to see the business differently. Golden City's inclusive approach, the way you've revolutionized the industry, it makes me question whether selling to Thompson is the right thing to do. Emily remained silent for a moment, weighing her options. Finally, she made a bold decision. Marcus, have you considered a merger instead of a sale? Marcus's eyes widened in surprise. A merger between New Luxury and Golden City? Emily nodded. Think about it. Your technological innovations combined with our experience and values, we could create something truly unique. As they discussed the preliminary details, outside in the store, Rose was facing an unexpected challenge. A group of protesters had gathered in front of Golden City, protesting against what they called false inclusion and exploitation of minorities. Jack, worried, approached Rose. Mrs. Rose, should we call security? Rose shook her head, a determined smile on her face. No, Jack, I'm going to talk to them. To everyone's surprise, Rose went out to face the protesters. Calmly and with dignity, she began to share her story. How Golden City had changed not only her life but that of many others. She spoke of employment opportunities for people with disabilities, mentoring programs for youth from marginalized communities, and how they were redefining the concept of luxury. Little by little, the hostility of the protesters began to dissipate, replaced by curiosity and, in some cases, admiration. Meanwhile, in the office, Emily and Marcus had reached a preliminary agreement. They came out to share the news, only to find themselves with the surprising scene of Rose surrounded by former protesters, now listening attentively to her words. Emily felt a wave of pride and excitement. This was the true power of Golden City, not just selling jewelry, but changing perceptions and uniting people. However, as she observed the scene, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of concern. She knew that Thompson wouldn't stand idly by in the face of these developments. The real battle was just beginning, and Emily wondered what challenges awaited them on the horizon. With determination, she turned to Marcus. "Let's get ready. We have a lot of work ahead of us." The sun was beginning to set over New York City, bathing the facade of Golden City in a golden glow. It was the beginning of a new era, full of promises and challenges alike. The days following the announcement of the merger between Golden City and New Luxury were a whirlwind of activity. Emily and Marcus worked tirelessly to integrate the operations of both companies, while Rose had become the public face of the new initiative, giving interviews and sharing the vision of truly inclusive luxury. However, the apparent calm was interrupted one morning when Jack burst into Emily's office, his face pale with concern. "Emily, you have to see this," he said, extending his tablet. On the screen, an article from a prominent business magazine detailed alleged unethical practices at Golden City. The article claimed that the company exploited workers from marginalized communities and that its image of inclusion was just a facade to obtain benefits. Emily felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "This is ridiculous. None of this is true." Marcus, who had been present at the meeting, frowned. "This has to be Thompson's work. He's trying to discredit us before the merger is completed." Before they could discuss further, Rose entered the office, her normally cheerful face now somber. "Honey, there are journalists outside, and they don't look friendly." Emily stood up, her mind working at full speed. "All right, we're going to face this head-on. Mom, I need you to use your social media to share real testimonials from our employees. Jack, contact our allies in other companies. We need their support. Marcus, you and I are going to talk to the press." As they prepared to leave, Emily received an unexpected call. It was Sarah, her former manager. "Emily," Sarah's voice sounded tense. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I need to talk to you. It's about Thompson and the articles." Intrigued and cautious, Emily agreed to meet Sarah at a nearby cafe after the press conference. The next hour was a frenzy of camera flashes and aggressive questions. Emily and Marcus stood firm, refuting each accusation with facts and testimonies. Rose, from her wheelchair, joined them at the end, her presence adding emotional weight to their words. "Golden City is not just a store," Emily declared before the microphones. "It's a movement towards a world where luxury is not defined by exclusion, but by inclusion. Where beauty and value are not limited by a person's appearance or physical condition." After the conference, Emily headed to the cafe, her mind still reeling. Sarah was already there, looking nervous and remorseful. "Thank you for coming," Sarah began. "What I'm going to tell you, it's not easy for me." Over the next half hour, Sarah revealed how Thompson had hired her after her dismissal to sabotage Golden City from within. She had been the source of the initial rumors and had provided twisted information for the defamatory article. "I was angry and hurt," Sarah admitted, tears in her eyes. "But seeing how you've handled everything, how you're really changing things, I can't continue to be part of this." Emily listened in silence, her emotions conflicted. Part of her wanted to be angry, but another part understood the power of repentance and change. "Sarah," she finally said, "what you did was wrong. But your honesty now, that counts for something. Would you be willing to make a public statement?" Sarah nodded, determination replacing her nervousness. "Yes, I will. It's the right thing to do." As they left the cafe, Emily received a message from Jack. "You have to see this. We're trending on all social networks. Now Golden City for all." A smile spread across Emily's face. The storm hadn't passed, but for the first time in days, she felt a ray of hope. With Sarah on their side, they had a chance to expose Thompson's tactics and further strengthen their message of inclusion. As she headed back to the store, Emily knew the next few days would be crucial. The battle for the soul of luxury in New York City was reaching its climax, and she was ready to face it with everything she had. Dawn found Emily already in her office, surrounded by documents and empty coffee cups. The last 48 hours had been a roller coaster of emotions and events. Sarah's public statement had caused a media frenzy, exposing Thompson's unethical tactics and generating a wave of support for Golden City. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Rose, with a breakfast tray. "You need to eat, honey," she said gently. "You can't save the world on an empty stomach." Emily smiled gratefully. "Thanks, Mom. I don't know what I'd do without you." As they shared breakfast, Jack rushed in, his face a mix of excitement and concern. "Emily, you need to see this," he said, turning on the office TV. On screen, a report showed protests outside Thompson Enterprises' main offices. Employees, customers, and activists had united to protest against the unethical business practices exposed by Sarah. "Incredible," Emily murmured. "The power of truth." But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Emily's phone rang, showing an unknown number. "Hello? Mrs. Johnson." The voice on the other end was Mr. Thompson's, but it sounded different, tired, defeated. "I think it's time we had a conversation." An hour later, Emily found herself in Thompson Enterprises' boardroom, facing the man who had been her nemesis for so long. Thompson looked like he had aged years in just a few days. "Mrs. Johnson, Emily," Thompson began, his voice laden with emotion, "I've made mistakes, many mistakes. I was so obsessed with maintaining control, with preserving an outdated idea of what luxury should be, that I lost sight of what really matters." Emily listened in silence, surprised by the vulnerability of the man who had once threatened her. Thompson continued, "I see now what you've accomplished with Golden City, how you've changed not just the industry, but people's lives. And I want to be part of that change. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Thompson?" Emily asked, cautious but intrigued. "An alliance," he replied. "Not a merger, not an acquisition, a true alliance. I want to put Thompson Enterprises' resources behind your vision. Help expand the Golden City model, not just in New York, but internationally." Emily was speechless for a moment. The proposal was unexpected and potentially transformative. "And what about your other businesses?" she finally asked. "Are they willing to adopt our values of inclusion and social responsibility?" Thompson nodded. "I'm prepared to make significant changes in all our operations. Your model has shown that you can do business ethically and still be successful. I want to learn from you, Emily." As they discussed preliminary details, Emily couldn't help but think about the long road that had led her to this moment. From selling crafts on the streets to being on the verge of revolutionizing the luxury industry globally. Back at Golden City, Emily gathered her team, including Marcus, Jack, Rose, and even Sarah, to share the news and discuss the way forward. "This is bigger than all of us," Emily said, looking each one in the eye. "It's an opportunity to change not just our industry, but to impact lives around the world. Are you with me?" The response was a resounding and unanimous yes. As the sun set over New York City, bathing Golden City's facade in a golden glow, Emily felt a mixture of excitement and responsibility. The future was full of promises and challenges, but with her team by her side and her vision clear, she was ready to face it all. What had started as a small luxury store had become a movement, a beacon of hope and change. And this was just the beginning. 1 year passed since the alliance between Golden City and Thompson Enterprises. Emily prepared to give her annual speech to shareholders and employees. Key points of Emily's speech: Golden City's global expansion launch of mentorship program for underrepresented designers, introduction of sustainable jewelry line, opening of New York flagship store with cutting-edge technology, Rose's continued influence as brand ambassador. Emily emphasized the company's commitment to redefining luxury through inclusion and sustainability. She announced plans for the Golden City Foundation to promote education and entrepreneurship in disadvantaged communities. The speech was met with enthusiasm. Rose, sitting in the front row, beamed with pride. Afterwards, Emily met with her core team to discuss future plans. They faced challenges, integrating Thompson's existing businesses, maintaining authenticity while scaling globally, pushback from traditional luxury brands. Despite obstacles, Emily felt optimistic. Golden City had become a movement for change in the industry. As they looked to the future, Emily reminded her team, "Our greatest challenge is staying true to our mission as we grow. Every decision must reflect our values of inclusion, empowerment, and responsibility." The team left energized, ready to take Golden City to new heights. Emily gazed at the New York skyline, reflecting on the journey from street vendor to industry leader. She knew this was just the beginning of Golden City's golden story.